Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, version 2.0 of my Premier League table predictions. Obviously, I'm going to try and do this throughout the course of the summer as transfers start to happen, as stories also start to break, and, we start to learn a little bit more about maybe what's going on behind the scenes at certain football clubs as well. Lots of very interesting stuff to get into today. I'll be honest, if you want to hear my kind of just base opinions of where the club is at, where each club is at, and why I've got them where they are, I'd recommend going back and watching my version 1.0 table prediction. I give a slightly broader view, let's say, on why I think a certain team will do well or won't do well, and I think I explain my reasoning there. I have no ill will towards really any of these teams, to be perfectly honest with you. I really like the Premier League. Obviously, I'm a fan of a team in Italy. However, as somewhat of a neutral, I really enjoy watching the Premier League. So, and a lot of these teams find it very difficult to dislike any of these teams, really. So obviously, no ill will. It's just my explanation as to why I think they'll either do well or don't do well. It's not me trying to hope that somebody does well or doesn't do well. But hopefully this will be a slightly shorter video today than my previous one, because I'm just going to, especially the ones that aren't really moving and not much has changed, I'm just going to quickly go through them. But then I'll spend a little bit more time on teams that have moved up, teams that have moved down, why they've moved up, why they've moved down, and also just to kind of open up the conversation a little bit. A lot of these thoughts I don't even really know myself, so I'm just kind of exercising them live here with you guys. So again, I'll stop talking because we know I like to drag on, and we'll just get into it. Yeah, Luton Town, relegated, 20th spot. Like I said, they have no business being in the Premier League in terms of squad quality, general infrastructure at the club. Nearly any sort of metric that you can think of for evaluating a football club, Luton Town are not good enough to be a Premier League football team. I hope they prove me wrong. It would be a great underdog story, but I don't believe that will happen. I'm afraid. Sorry, Luton Town, but take your money. Invest your money well, and then come back again the year after and give it a good shot. Sheffield United also have not moved, in at 19th as well. Again, couple of bright sparks across the team, but similarly to Luton Town, I mean, slightly higher quality, but similarly to Luton Town, not good enough quality and not in a good position to remain competitive and stay in the Premier League. So Sheffield United remaining in 19th as well. Everton, again, I'm going to keep them in there just to reiterate. I don't know what to make of Everton. I really don't. There's been some real, investment and optimism and certain managers coming in where you thought, oh, it was kind of exciting and kind of new and kind of different. And it just has never really panned out. My main kind of takeaways, Sean Dyche, we know what we're going to get. Is it going to surprise me if Sean Dyche makes Everton somewhat competitive and they finish 14th to 17th? Sure, why not? But I'm going to say for right now, a lack of goals is going to really mess up Everton's season. Dominic Calvert-Lewin can't do it all himself. He's not going to get many chances, and realistically, he's not really like much of a killer anyway. So I've got Everton in 18th. Bournemouth. I'll be honest with you, Bournemouth are missing the drop, but Bournemouth are one of these teams where, like, as I was doing this, 2.0 list here, I was very, very tempted to move them up a spot or two, just because I do think there's something happening at Bournemouth. There's some investment going in on a certain type of player that you think the new manager will like, and I think it might click. We might see a Brighton 2.0, a Brentford 2.0 type of vibe out of Bournemouth if everything goes well. I'm going to bank on it going well enough for them to remain competitive in the league, to a point where they avoid relegation. Again, general quality across the squad not particularly good enough, but there's something happening at Bournemouth. I just want people to keep like half an eye on it. In at 16th, West Ham. Yeah, guys, listen. They've still not invested the money. In the same way that I've marked Spurs way down because I just refuse to believe that Harry Kane will be a Tottenham Hotspur player at the start. Well, not the start of the season, but at the end of the transfer window, I refuse to believe Kane will be at Spurs. I don't know how West Ham are going to spend this money. If they spend 40 million on Scott McTominay, right? Question mark. However, if they do spend it, wisely, and there's a couple of nice pickups, nice additions, good value for money, all this kind of stuff, then okay, like maybe they can move up. I'm going to keep them at 16th for now because, again, it's just how this money is spent. They've been very inactive in terms of bringing players in the transfer market so far. And I just want to see what West Ham do. Gianluca Scamacca is going to leave too, so you'd imagine they need to try and attract some sort of a half-decent forward. Not many around in Europe at the moment, I'm afraid. So West Ham are going to stay in 16th again. Just a couple of my points. Still some fantastic players there. Lucas Paqueta is still great. They got more than double what I would have paid for Declan Rice if I was Arsenal. So incredible business there in terms of selling Declan Rice. I just don't know where that money's going to go, and they're in a worse position now than they were a year ago. So that's my reasoning for West Ham in 16th. Crystal Palace in 15th. Guys, again, I'm not going to overly repeat myself here. But yeah, identity crisis. Roy Hodgson, fine. He's not going to mess anything up, but he's also not going to blow anybody out of the water. Some of the, lack of signings, losing somebody like Wilfried Zaha, I'm just not overly confident with Crystal Palace going forward. Again, I think relying on the likes of Roy Hodgson and Premier League experience now for Palace, who've been in the league for a good chunk of time now. I'm okay with them and where they're at. Forest, Nottingham Forest, I have in 14th. Yep, Forest staying in 14th, and I know you guys are probably yawning at this point because no teams have actually moved around yet. We are getting there, I promise. But yeah, Nottingham Forest in at 14th. Yeah, they scare the hell out of me. There's real talent, and it feels like quite a high ceiling for this Nottingham Forest team. But I don't have the confidence yet. And all the teams that I have above them, I just look at and go, got a bit more confidence in that team being able to do something, or a bit more faith, let's call it, in that team doing something. So I'm still keeping Forest at 14th. Dropping a spot, though, I do have Brentford. Brentford are going to be in 13th. It's really difficult for me to explain my opinions on Brentford, I have to be honest. They just freak me out a bit at the moment. I don't know why. I really do think that their squad quality is similar to the likes of, a Sheffield United and a Bournemouth and, maybe a Palace, that kind of a thing. And I think that they've been overperforming for quite a while due to fantastic coaching and Thomas Frank, I really respect, and I think he's a great manager. But I mentioned this in the last video. I don't see them really developing. And especially in football, and especially in the Premier League, if you're not getting better, you are getting worse, because most people around you are going to be getting better. The vast majority will be. Brentford at the moment, and again, I've got kind of a little bit of a cheat sheet here in terms of Transfermarkt and the Premier League signings. So Nathan Collins being brought in from Wolves, that was a nice little pickup. Kevin Schade from Freiburg as well, nice pickup. Mark Flecken as well, I guess, is going to kind of bridge the gap if David Raya decides to leave as well. And again, a couple of players being promoted, players coming back from loan, that kind of thing. Players leaving as well, nothing too groundbreaking. So they really are in kind of a similar spot they were in last year, but none of these really blow me away compared to the other teams that I would think that should be battling them. And again, I'm just not seeing that development at Brentford. So they're dropping just one place. Again, I'm moving a team up. And obviously, when one team gets moved up, it means that other teams do have to drop down. Another one of those teams dropping down is Burnley. So they were 11th. I've got them in 12th now. Look, I like Burnley. And I think I've told you that I'm a believer in what Vincent Kompany's going to do, and I do think he's going to stick to what he knows and what he likes, just as it relates to his style of play and stuff. There was so many records set for goal difference, goals scored, goals conceded, average possession from memory. I think I've got it here, 64.6%. That's not going to be the same way in the Premier League. But I don't think we're going to see this low block Burnley, Sean Dyche thing return. I think Vincent Kompany's still going to try and play football here. And again, we can see that somewhat by the pickups. James Trafford, I really like the deal to sign him. I think that's really, really good. I'm sure that City have some sort of buyback option there as well. But again, forward in there from Basel, I like that. He's young as well. Lots and lots of young players. Again, average age of arrivals, guys, 23.5. And that number is including the likes of Val Wout Weghorst coming back from loan at Manchester United, from Vigouroux, who literally had no idea. He's come in from Leyton Orient, and also Nathan Redmond, who's just, kind of just going to be there probably more as a squad player. You'd be amazed he's going to be a starter. These are the guys that are going to be developed going forward. And the average age for these guys, I mean, you're looking at like 21.5, 22, right? So again, I like what Burnley are. I like what Burnley are building. And I think Vincent Kompany, Burnley are going to surprise some people. I don't know. I've not seen anybody else do predictions for Premier League tables or how teams are going to do. But for me, I feel like maybe I'm kind of high on Burnley with Burnley at 12th. But I guess we'll let everybody else decide that. 11th, also dropping one spot as well. And again, a story that I kind of want to get into here a little bit. Wolves, I've got dropping down to 11. I really like Wolves, and I was saying this a lot for the end of last year with Lopetegui, who, again, is no slob, is very, very, very talented football manager. Cunha coming in, Traore coming in, the kind of holding midfielder there from Metz as well. Matt Doherty coming back as well as a good culture fit, and maybe he'll be happier. Maybe he'll be happier coming back as well. Is that re-signing Connor Cody? Oh no, end of the loan for Connor Cody, so he's coming back as well. Ruben Neves, huge loss. Nathan Collins, again, potentially a huge loss, but maybe they feel okay with who they have there. Maybe with Connor Cody coming back, maybe he just slots straight in and made a bit of money there from him. I think that's okay. It's all the stuff at the moment with the Chinese ownership. Lopetegui, I think maybe a little bit of a mismanagement of expectations for Wolves, and he did an interview with Guillaume Balaguer where he talked about how he can't develop this team to be cracking into the European places without the right kind of funding and all this kind of stuff, and are the owners going to sell? And there's a little bit of discontent at the club. And, the likes of somebody like a Raul Jimenez has left as well. He was so good for so many years. It's been somewhat of a slow summer for Wolves. I'm sure Lopetegui isn't as happy as he'd maybe like to be with the recruitment. And I'm just feeling a little bit down on Wolves. I was really, really high on them, and now I'm slowly starting to kind of fall down a little bit. They are in danger with Burnley, Brentford, Forest, these kinds of teams around them. They are kind of potentially going to be going into the bottom half here right now, unless we see some changes, because, again, this team are kind of the polar opposite of a team that we're going to talk about next, which I just think is a fascinating conversation and comparison. Culture at a club. And guys, the players will have seen this interview that Lopetegui has done with Guillaume Balaguer. And also, if you're a player, right, and you're hearing your manager say that, we've not been active enough in the market and signing players, blah, 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 you're part of the current squad and the current team. He's trying to move you along, or he's trying to say that you're not good enough to do what we want to do. That has an impact on your team, definitely. So culturally, how that then relates to the manager, how that then relates to people applying themselves in training, in matches, tactics, blah, 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 all kind of adds up. So to a certain extent, the way I'm feeling right now and the way I'm talking about it as well, Wolves are probably lucky only just to drop down to 11th in my prediction here. A team, again, those of you paying a bit more of attention, that has gone up 3 places is Fulham. You might be thinking, what the hell are you talking about here? Mitrovic might leave, or will probably leave, and Raul Jimenez, I would say, I believe, has been signed not as just a complete replacement for Mitrovic. We know Mitrovic, especially at this point in each of their careers, respectively. Mitrovic is twice the player Raul Jimenez is, but I think Raul Jimenez still provides the exact same kind of thing that Jimenez does. That Mitrovic does, and that is the focal point. That is we have to worry about that guy. We have to worry about that guy, right? If he can stay fit as well, and I know that's a huge risk. However, the thing I do want to talk about, Marco Silva was supposedly given this huge, huge offer to go to Saudi Arabia and be a manager. I think it was like 20 million euros a year or 30 million euros a year, something insane, especially for a manager of Fulham, no less. And again, Marco Silva's a nice manager, but this is not Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Jose Mourinho type of manager. This is still a guy who's kind of cutting his teeth a little bit at the top level, and he still hasn't had a top job yet. Him turning down that kind of money to stay at Fulham, to continue doing what he's doing after the great year that they had last year, I think that's going to have a huge impact on this squad and the way that they play and apply themselves going forward. And I think it's all positive as it relates to Fulham. Jimenez in for not too much, that's fine. It's only going to be for a couple of years. A couple of guys coming back from loan, that's fine. Obviously, some players leaving. You can see they've still not spent much money. Fred, I believe, from Manchester United has been a player of some interest for Fulham as well. I want to say, is it Brian? Is it Broby? Let me check on my phone here. But there's a centre back coming in for Fulham as well. Something that Fabrizio Romano was tweeting about recently. I'm going to find him here real quick. I'm sure it will come up pretty easily, knowing my Twitter usage. Sorry, guys. I know this is just dead air. Oh no, excuse me. Not Brian Broby. I don't know what I'm talking about. It was a B, but Calvin Bassey, a Nigerian centre back, is coming in. It's still from Ajax, just got the wrong player. 21 million euros. Bassey is coming in at centre back for Fulham as well. And again, bit of new blood. We know from the Ajax academy as well, he's going to be good with his feet. He's going to be able to do what Marco Silva wants. And again, it's another incremental step, the next step going forward, to help this Fulham team develop. The main takeaway point though with Fulham, in my opinion, is Marco Silva turning down that money to stay at the club. I think the squad are going to love that. If Mitrovic does end up leaving, maybe they'll sign another forward to come in and replace them. And again, if the recruitment's been as good as it's been the last couple of years, I don't see why Fulham can't continue to kind of solidify that mid-table spot as well. And 21 million euros for Bassey as well. Let me see if I can find his age here as well, because I don't think he's particularly old. Calvin Bassey, 23 years old, 6'1", Rangers, Ajax, and he spent his youth career at Leicester. So he's very, very familiar with with British football as well. I think that's a great pickup. Obviously, Tim Ream had a great year last year, but again, how long can he do that for, right? I know I've spent a lot of time here on Fulham, but yeah, Fulham, they're my biggest climbers. They've gone up 3 places. I'm really, really big on them. Yes, I'm afraid to say, Spurs fans, you are still in 9th. I do apologise about that. And what I'm going to do, I think I've done this table wrong. Yeah, we'll just stick you there. So yeah, Spurs. I've been following Spurs preseason quite a lot because I'm fascinated to see what happens with Kane. Bayern looks the most likely at the moment, or PSG have rumoured as well. I still have this sneaking suspicion that, Manchester United, very late in the window, might just match whatever anybody else decides to do and go from there. I think Kane wants that Premier League record. And that's what I can see happening. I don't know. It's not based on any news and reports. I think anybody who is looking at that kind of stuff would say that Bayern is most likely. I just have this sneaking suspicion that the Kane Manchester United thing's a real thing and it's going to happen. We'll have to see. But again, I've been keeping an eye on Spurs in pre-season. Ange Postecoglou, I made a point in my first video about him not being maybe, in big games and stuff, maybe not having the tactical nous and nuances of the game to be able to be competitive. But I've seen some pretty nice stuff. It's pre-season. So that means 2 things. Don't overreact to something being really good, but also in the same way, don't overreact to something being really bad. Okay, it's never as good or never as bad as you think it is. A lot of preseason is about fitness, it's sprints, it's all this kind of stuff, conditioning, getting yourself back into the rhythm of things, playing in front of stadiums, getting used to new team members. The score and all that stuff doesn't usually matter. So again, seeing Spurs and some of the stuff they're doing, I think is great. I'm not going to get too overhyped about it, which is why they're still 9th. And again, guys, their best player is going to leave. I love Dejan Kulusevski. I love Heung-min Son. I love Bentancur. I love a lot of what Spurs can potentially be and have to offer. But I've not seen it to the levels that I'd like to see it to give me any faith. And also, is the replacement number 9 Richarlison? Because again, Richarlison's a nice player. That's a Brazil international. We saw him at Everton. We know there's a player in there with heart and character, loads and loads of stuff. But he's not Harry Kane. This is going to be one of the biggest drop-offs from a centre forward that we've seen in a while. And Spurs need to figure out what they're going to do. Do they put a bunch of money in for Gonzalo Ramos? Do they go for somebody like Dusan Vlahovic? Do they go for Muani? Do they hijack a Højlund deal? Right? I don't know what Spurs are going to do, but I think they need to hurry up and do it, because this long kind of waiting game I don't think is going to benefit them. Brighton, final team just missing out on Europe. Look, guys, I've underestimated Brighton, I think. It was only when I sat down and looked at kind of the news and the changes over the last couple of weeks or so that, again, I know I mentioned about João Pedro. I know I mentioned about Evan Ferguson, Mitoma and Enciso and how excited I am about them. Guys, Mo Dahoud is like a nice, solid player. James Milner is a veteran, knows what he's doing so as an engine. Igor from Fiorentina as well. Again, another like nice player. Verbruggen, lots of big teams were looking at him as well. That's really, really nice in the goalkeeper spot as well. Jason Steels obviously was fantastic last year, but maybe this will be the next guy, because I believe they've still got Sanchez in there as well. Again, I just think people are going to play Brighton differently. I just think they are. And also, I need to start saying this. Like 7th, 8th, 9th, those are it's kind of a new top 3. And I know a lot of you might be thinking, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean by that? For these clubs to compete with the Manchester teams, those 3 big London teams, right? Liverpool and Newcastle. Is that everybody? Yeah, but basically that is borderline impossible. And even Spurs aren't keeping up with those guys. So how the hell do you think the other teams are supposed to do? It's a very, very difficult task. So for a lot of these kind of middling Premier League teams who are still trying to establish themselves and make some money and blah, 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 and do all this kind of stuff, 7th, 8th, 9th is an unbelievable achievement. Unbelievable. And that's where Brighton are. But I think the problem is they will now get respected as a top half, bigger team, because people know the way they play football. And it's probably going to be a bit of a shock. I do expect them to adjust and play accordingly, but I don't think they'll be able to catch many teams by surprise like they used to. That's kind of my main takeaway. Yeah, next up, and sneaking into these spots here, if that little bar will go away. Oh, I might be able to get it anyway. Yep, Aston Villa. I did watch Sam Tighe do a video for Tifo Football. Sam Tighe, who actually I've like had beers with before when he was still at Bleacher Report. He may still be there actually. And I remember like asking him, a few questions, this and that, and one thing that I did get a sense of is this a guy who, like, he really knows his stuff, as much as I'm sure him and I forget his co-host or the guy he sometimes does videos with. I think people can be guilty for thinking like, who are these guys? These aren't ex-players. These aren't this. These aren't that. Like, I don't know what their educational background is in the sport, blah, blah, blah. I think it's very easy to be like, why should I care about what this guy thinks? In the exact same way that you should probably be thinking, who the hell are you, mate? And you're probably right. But he did do this video on Aston Villa where he talked about strength and where Villa were good and, where Villa were bad and all this kind of stuff. And he made a point of a lot of Aston Villa's like transfer activity is not in relation to where they are necessarily weak on the football pitch. And again, Moussa Diaby, what a pickup, right? Great. What a talented, like amazing guy. If you'd have told me that you've got, as Bundesliga wingers, you've got like Leon Bailey and Moussa Diaby and they're playing at the same team and like, Villa doing this like crazy thing of like really talented players coming in. Pau Torres, Tielemans on a free transfer. Like, there's a bunch of great stuff happening. Good money being spent as well, but it kind of doesn't feel like it's necessarily in the right areas. Now, the more you add quality and you've still got a good manager and there's a good base squad there, I'm not going to move you at all. But I'd feel much more kind of warm and cozy if Aston Villa got themselves maybe some fullbacks, maybe another centre back, maybe another central midfielder as well. Keeping hold of Emi Martinez is huge. Potentially another striker, like an out and out traditional striker, would be good as well. But again, Villa, I just think they'll surprise a lot of teams this year. And similarly in many ways to Wolves, it's a manager who is better than the club that they have. And they have actually a lot of players in a lot of positions where you go, man, how are you kind of getting away with this? Like, good for you. But it's good. It's a good thing. They might be able to do what say a Brighton did last year, just as an example. Chelsea 6th. They're going to drop one spot for me. There's too many moving parts. I can't get behind any sort of confidence or conviction in saying that it's going to be a car crash or it's going to be a massive success. It's just going to be somewhere in the middle. There'll be games where you go, man, this might be the best team in the Premier League because it just clicks, right? Mudryk and Kunku, it's just all, everything feels right. Noni Madueke, again, there's some serious talent to be unloaded there. The Moises Caicedo deal, again, if I'm a Chelsea fan, I'm hoping that Brighton keep rejecting these bids. It's way too much money for a player that I don't rate quite like that. Again, Yves Bissouma is a nice player and was a nice player for Brighton, but he's gone to Spurs and okay, like fine, it's been okay, but has he set the world alight? I don't think so. This does strike me as a Brighton play a certain way that lends itself to a player in this position showing out and showing how good they are. Now, I'd love for Moises Caicedo to prove me wrong. I think that'd be great. But Moises Caicedo, I don't know, 30, 35, 40 million pound player in my book. 80 million pounds up front for Moises Caicedo is just absolute insanity to me. I'd go find another player to bring in. Anyway, Chelsea dropped back a bit. Again, it's going to be a lot of moving parts, a lot of unknowns, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, sixth for Chelsea. Liverpool are also going to be a team that are dropping out of the top 4. They're going to be finishing 5th in my book as this latest prediction. I did a video with James about our Liverpool back, and we asked a bunch of questions on that show, and it did just get me thinking, like, man, how much weight am I going to give to history? How much do you let history inform what's going to happen in the future, right? Because players get better and players get worse, right? Good signings get made, bad signings get made. As much as it's important to use the history of a situation to inform you going forward, to then completely ignore the fact that it might have just wholeheartedly changed is naive. Trent at central midfield is a huge risk. I don't know whether it's going to work or not. Virgil van Dijk getting older. Completely new midfield. Injury problems across the front 3. Question marks over Darwin Nunez. Age of certain players becoming potentially an issue here. Again, I love Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp's one of my favourite managers of all time, but is he going to potentially at some point here feel a little jaded? Jordan Henderson leaving is massive. In a way, there's a bit more continuity and stability at Liverpool than there is at Chelsea in terms of the manager and a lot of the players, and there's a style and a culture. They've won together recently, so getting that back will be relatively easy. I would take the squad quality of Chelsea over the squad quality of Liverpool. Mo Salah's still going to kind of do his thing, but again, he's getting older and older. You don't get faster when you get into your mid early 30s. I don't know. I'm kind of down on Liverpool. I think the only reason why I think I'm maybe higher on Liverpool as everybody else, I look at the teams beneath them. I mean, Chelsea, Villa, Brighton. Am I really going to put any of those teams above Liverpool? I don't think so. So I think 5th for Liverpool right now is about right. Yeah, Liverpool dropped the spot. Newcastle have got finishing 4th. I mentioned about, similarly to Brighton, how they're going to people are going to start playing these teams differently, right? They're going to be like, this Newcastle now, this is no joke. Like, that's Alexander Isak. That's Bruno Guimaraes, right? That's Sandro Tonali. That's Kieran Tripp. Like, do you know what I mean? They're going to start being like, these are no slobs anymore. These are good football players. That's Joelinton. He's a central midfielder now. What the hell's going on, right? All this kind of stuff starting to happen. Um, I think I've underestimated, and you guys are going to think, "Oh, shut up!" Like Syria chat, like bored of it or whatever. I think Sandro Tonali's a huge signing for them. I really do. It's kind of transformative in many ways. Um, you know, recycling the ball. They do have players who can play on the ball. They've got guys who can run channels, create opportunities, fullbacks who can have good delivery, centre backs who can play with the ball as well. Harvey Barnes coming in is kind of nice as well. I give them a lot of credit for that. Even off the bench, if he's not starting, I think that's a really solid purchase. I don't know. And also, I think Eddie Howe's a good coach. I think Eddie Howe's a good coach and a good manager. So in the same way that I think De Zerbi and Brighton are going to get respected like a big team when they go up against any of these teams down here, I think Newcastle will too. But I think Newcastle will have a bit more about them to be able to break down these teams than a team like Brighton. Yeah, again, if you asked me who's going to win a Premier League title first from now out of Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Newcastle United, I might say Newcastle United. City are going to keep winning it as long as Pep's there. Arsenal are getting dangerously close, dangerously close. Manchester United again. If I still think if Manchester United sign Kane, they might win the league. I think he's that much of a difference maker. It's the equivalent of when City got Haaland. It was just like, well, I mean, they've won the league now, and even they even made that to a certain extent. They even made that look kind of hard. Um, I don't know. I think Newcastle are going in one direction, and I think in the next 5-10 years there'll be a title in there, maybe two. And I think that Eddie Howe going to be the guy when that comes around and happens? I still don't think so. I think they'll bring in a European who really knows his stuff and is comfortable dealing with stars and stuff. But maybe Eddie Howe can grow with this club and grow with this team. Again, I think he's a good coach and can do it. But yeah, Newcastle up 2 spots. Manchester United still third. Arsenal still second. City still champions. And we'll just rattle through these real quick. I think Manchester United will get this Rasmus Højlund guy, but I don't think it impacts them really at all. I think it might next year, and it might the year after, and we might be looking at a guy where we go, damn, wow, what a smart signing. Look how great he's been for this team, blah, blah, blah. I don't think this is going to be a 30-goal-a-year guy, but I think this will be maybe 10 assists, 18 to 20 goals at his best. Bringing other players into play and being a huge, very, very impactful player on how Ten Hag wants to play. But I don't think it will be for right now. In the same way with Mason Mount, I don't think Mason Mount really moves the needle that much for Manchester United. I think it's a nice signing, maybe overpaid a little bit, but I think it's a nice signing. Andre Onana is the big one. And Andre Onana, I've got to be honest, is the reason that Manchester United aren't in 4th or 5th right now. He changes the way they play, and I just think they'll, against all these teams, maybe from Villa and Brighton, maybe down, I think that Andre Onana, that you're picking up points there across the board, just from how good he is in the first phase. He's a great outlet. He'll be able to nullify counters occasionally coming out and all this kind of stuff. It's a big risk, but it's a huge part just in general of the way I think Ten Hag wants to play. It's in the big games with Manchester United. That's always going to be the problem. And you've now signed a goalkeeper who's a worse shot stopper than the one you had. So in big games, if there was the odd thing where you'd concede 6 goals or you'd concede 8 goals or whatever it was, that could be more if you don't have David De Gea between the sticks. So third for Manchester United. Arsenal, yeah, Rice I don't mind as a long-term thing, but if Thomas Partey is still there, I just don't understand that. I do not understand a Rice Partey double pivot. I don't. Because again, if you're then doing a 2-3-1 from midfield onwards, you've got a double pivot, and then either Odegaard or Havertz is going to have to take up that central 10 spot, and then you either put one of them out wide and drop either Saka or Martinelli, neither of whom I would drop. Gabriel Jesus is still your number 9. My thought process in my brain from when Arsenal had this midfield plan, it was, oh, cool. So Partey's going to go to Saudi Arabia or do whatever. I don't know why they'd move on from him, but okay, fine, do whatever you want. And then they're going to have Havertz and Odegaard. Oh my God, that's going to be so cool. Fullback's going to push up. Wingers might come in a little bit. Jesus is going to be milling around. There's going to be runs. It's going to be great. Arteta's finally going to be able to do what he wants to do. Maybe we'll see the best out of Havertz. Rice can develop playing for a bigger team. But if they're going to keep Thomas Partey, I think it's a weird thing. And I think you've got a player who shouldn't be on the bench. I just think that's really odd. Yeah. I like Arsenal's summer so far. It's been somewhat ambitious, but I think that it's lost a little bit of momentum. And actually, if you look at the starting 11 from last year, and then you look at the starting 11 from this year, is it that much better? I really don't think it is, Well, I'm sure they're glad they've got Nicola Pepe back. Pablo Mari's back too, great. But yeah, listen. There's one team, the best team, and that's Man City. Best manager, best squad. And again, there will be signings. There will be signings. Players will leave, but there will be signings. And these signings will be good. Everyone wants to play for Pep. Everyone wants to make a lot of money. Everybody wants to win. Again, it's cyclical like that. Like I said, I think, if the rumours are to be believed about this Newcastle bid for Kvaratskhelia, yeah, of course. I think Marco Verratti rumoured to go to Saudi Arabia, but does he get an out? Maybe does he want to come in? Joshua Kimmich, the links there as well, I think are interesting. I don't know. I just refuse to guys. Let's just end this video out here. Also, I love the way I said this was going to be shorter, and it's almost certainly been longer. Kovacic, nice, good medium kind of midway thing. João Cancelo come back, potentially a bit of a headache, but yeah, apart from that, not much has happened. And then they've gotten rid of a couple of players. Yeah, they've Man City are champions. They've made money this summer in transfer fees only. Again, I have no doubt that Kovacic, João Cancelo back on the books. Saying that though, but yeah, signings will happen. Again, if it was the season started today, I'm not gonna lie, maybe City wouldn't even be winning the league. Maybe. Because they've not gotten better, they've gotten worse. Guys, as it stands, Man City have gotten worse. But I would say to you, do you think this is how the summer ends? Do you really think this is how the summer transfer window ends? I think you're insane if you think that way. I think you're absolutely mad. I really like Mateo Kovacic. I really like him, and I'm really excited to see what he is under Pep. But I think Ilkay Gundogan is a better player than Mateo Kovacic, but not by loads. Not by loads. João Cancelo coming back again. It's a potential headache, but we'll see, right? I just refuse to believe that there's not going to be a winger, another midfielder, maybe a centre-back, maybe another forward if they're feeling a little crazy as well. I just refuse to believe that Man City are going to go into the next window with the team in the way it is. Anyway, that is my Premier League table prediction 2.0. We've moved along a little bit, right? Couple of moving parts here, which I'll just get up here real quick. So I've got Newcastle moving up 2 spots to 4th now, cracking into the top 4, really establishing themselves as a top 4. Liverpool drop a spot, Chelsea drop a spot. Fulham gained 3 spots. I think Marco Silva rejecting Saudi Arabia is going to be massive for that club, that squad, that culture. I think that's going to be amazing. Wolves drop a spot, Burnley drop a spot, Brentford drop a spot. Apart from that, everybody retains their places. Again, similarly to before, any issues you have here, I want to hear it. Are you a City fan? Are you worried you actually won't sign anybody? Arsenal, have you not closed the gap enough? Manchester United, are you ready to win a league title with Rasmus Højlund instead of Harry Kane? Or could you just do it with Rashford? Newcastle, am I overhyping you? Burnley, am I overhyping you? Fulham, am I overhyping you? Everton, I got you going down. Let me know as well. Liverpool, you're now out of the top 4. Let me have it. I want to hear it. Explained, detailed. Let's have a conversation here. I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just trying to put teams where I think they're going to finish. Anyway, guys, until next time, I'll see you.